Saudi Arabia, the world's largest oil exporter, is facing an unprecedented challenge: an oil shortage. For years, this country's economy has thrived on the black gold beneath its vast desert. But now, a new reality is emerging. Depleting reserves, global pressures, and shifting energy demands are leading to a situation no one expected. How did this come to be? And what does the future hold for a nation so tightly bound to its oil? The Oil Kingdom, Saudi Arabia's dependence on oil. Saudi Arabia's identity and economy have been built on oil. For decades, oil has been the driving force behind its wealth and global influence. The country is home to the world's largest proven oil reserves, with some estimates placing it at around 260 billion barrels. The oil sector accounts for approximately 90% of its revenue, and the kingdom has long been a pillar of the global energy market. Saudi Arabia has enjoyed unparalleled dominance in the global oil industry. The government has been able to use oil revenues to fund infrastructure projects, education, healthcare, and the lavish lifestyles of the nation's elite. But over-reliance on this single resource has made the country vulnerable to a changing global energy landscape. The decline of oil reserves. The heart of Saudi Arabia's oil crisis lies beneath the surface. While the country's reserves have long been viewed as vast and seemingly inexhaustible, they are not without limits. The truth is that oil is a finite resource, and Saudi Arabia's fields, particularly the aging Ghawar oil field, the largest conventional oil field in the world, are showing signs of depletion. Ghawar, like many other oil fields in Saudi Arabia, is entering a phase of decline. While it still produces large amounts of oil, its output has decreased significantly over the years. This is a natural consequence of extracting oil over decades. And even with advanced technology, replenishing the field isn't possible. Historically, Saudi Arabia's oil fields were able to produce millions of barrels a day with minimal effort. But now, the country is facing a situation where these resources are becoming harder and more expensive to extract. The depletion of these oil fields is a looming problem that threatens the kingdom's long-term oil production capabilities. Global shifts in energy demand. In addition to the internal pressures facing Saudi Arabia's oil industry, there are global forces at play. The world is increasingly turning toward alternative energy sources. Renewable energy technologies, such as solar, wind, and hydroelectric power, are gaining ground. Simultaneously, the rise of electric vehicles is reducing global demand for oil, as countries and industries seek to decrease their carbon footprint. Renewables are becoming more viable every day. The cost of solar panels, wind turbines, and battery storage has dropped significantly in recent years, making these technologies more accessible for both developed and developing nations. As the world embraces cleaner energy, the demand for oil, particularly in transportation, is decreasing. International agreements like the Paris Climate Accords have pressured nations to commit to reducing carbon emissions. As part of this global shift, oil, which has long been the dominant source of energy, is slowly being phased out in favor of cleaner alternatives. Saudi Arabia's response, Vision 2030, and diversification efforts. Faced with the reality of a dwindling oil supply and a world moving toward clean energy, Saudi Arabia has embarked on an ambitious plan to diversify its economy. Vision 2030, introduced by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, seeks to reduce the kingdom's dependence on oil and create a more sustainable, diversified economy. Vision 2030 is an ambitious initiative to reduce Saudi Arabia's dependence on oil. We're focusing on sectors like tourism, entertainment, technology, and renewable energy. The goal is to create a more resilient economy that can thrive even without the same oil revenue that we've relied on for decades. Part of this diversification includes projects like NEOM, a futuristic smart city that will rely on renewable energy, cutting-edge technology, and sustainability. NEOM aims to be a global hub for innovation, offering Saudi Arabia a way to reduce its oil dependency while showcasing a vision of a new economy for the country. Saudi Arabia is also investing heavily in renewable energy. The country has some of the best solar and wind resources in the world, and there are plans to harness this potential to power the nation and even export clean energy. If successful, these efforts could provide a sustainable path for Saudi Arabia in the post-oil era. The immediate consequences of the oil shortage. Despite Saudi Arabia's plans for diversification, the immediate consequences of the oil shortage are being felt across the globe. The kingdom's oil production has already started to slow down. In some areas, oil production has been reduced to conserve reserves, and the global oil market has been disrupted as a result. As Saudi Arabia reduces its oil output, global oil prices have begun to fluctuate. Countries that rely on cheap Saudi oil are being forced to look for alternatives. This shift in supply dynamics has resulted in higher oil prices worldwide, which affects everything from transportation costs to the price of goods. Consumers are already feeling the impact of rising oil prices. Higher fuel prices lead to increased transportation costs, which in turn drives up the cost of goods and services. For countries that depend heavily on Saudi oil, the shortage is becoming a significant economic challenge. The geopolitical impact of Saudi Arabia's oil shortage. The geopolitical consequences of Saudi Arabia's oil shortage are also significant. As one of the most powerful oil producers in the world, Saudi Arabia has used its oil wealth as a tool for regional influence and power. With declining oil reserves, the kingdom may lose its ability to exert the same level of influence over oil-producing nations and global markets. Saudi Arabia's position as a key player in the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, is being challenged. As the kingdom reduces its oil output, rival oil producers like Russia, the United States, and others are stepping in to fill the gap. This shift has the potential to reshape the balance of power in the global energy market. The rise of U.S. shale oil production and Russia's growing influence in the oil markets mean that Saudi Arabia may no longer hold the same leverage it once did. These changes have broader implications for global security, trade, and international relations. So, what does the future hold for Saudi Arabia? The country is at a crossroads, with its massive oil wealth now being tempered by the realities of climate change, shifting energy demands, and the depletion